Urgent, serious tone. The President of the United States has given Tehran exactly 24 hours. The explicit threat on the table is Power Plant Day, a coordinated campaign to obliterate Iran's critical infrastructure. The United States military is already in position. Stealth bombers and strike groups are prepped, fully loaded and waiting for the clock to run out to execute these devastating strikes. But intelligence confirms a sudden escalation. Iran has acquired intercontinental ballistic missiles, or ICBMs, from North Korea. These are high-payload rockets specifically designed to travel thousands of miles across oceans. The introduction of ICBMs shifts the conflict's geography. Previously, Iranian strikes were confined to U.S. regional bases. Now they possess the range to reach the American mainland directly. The old rules of engagement are gone. Washington and Tehran are now locked in a mutual destruction pact where a single preemptive strike could immediately trigger an apocalyptic response on American soil. This satellite image shows the Strait of Hormuz. It is a narrow, vulnerable waterway, but 20% of the world's entire oil supply flows through it. Iran's primary defensive maneuver is the threat to close this choke point instantly. They are expanding this economic warfare beyond their own borders, threatening to weaponize the Bab al-Mandab Strait near the Red Sea to freeze international shipping lines completely. The danger to U.S. allies in the Gulf is existential. Iran has pointed swarms of cheap drones at desalination plants in the UAE and Saudi Arabia. These facilities strip salt from seawater and provide 60% of the drinking water for those nations. By holding the global energy market and the literal water supply of neighboring countries hostage, Iran has turned the Gulf states into a human shield to paralyze U.S. military action. Finding an exit strategy is severely complicated by the fact that direct negotiations between Washington and Tehran are dead, collapsing entirely after U.S. operations eliminated top Iranian leadership. In response to those strikes, Iran activated its Mosaic Doctrine. They decentralized their military, splitting it into 31 independent provincial commands. Even if Washington wanted to talk, top-down negotiation is now physically impossible. Into this massive diplomatic void steps an emergency coalition: Pakistan, Egypt, and Turkey. Their immediate, desperate objective is to directly engage the U.S. administration and stretch that 24-hour ultimatum into 48 hours, buying a tiny window to establish back-channel talks. With traditional diplomatic channels shattered, this triad of nations is the only mechanism currently standing in the way of a global war. Pakistan operates as the primary communication bridge. They are passing direct, highly confidential messages back and forth between the U.S. administration and Tehran. That connection was validated when Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi publicly praised Pakistan's efforts. That public nod handed Islamabad the absolute legitimacy it needed to act as a trusted broker. Meanwhile, Turkey and Egypt are utilizing their heavy regional influence to propose face-saving off-ramps and temporary ceasefires to both sides. This aerial view captures Jebel Ali port in the UAE. A secondary, urgent mission for the Mediators is untangling the UAE from the conflict before retaliatory Iranian strikes wipe out massive commercial hubs just like this one. These mediators are prioritizing pragmatic survival tactics over the public demands and rhetoric of the two administrations. The mediators have managed to pause the timeline of fire and blood, but the situation remains at a critical boiling point. The structural threats have not been neutralized. Looking at this satellite view of the Natanz nuclear facility, we see the first unresolved tripwire. Iran's nuclear capacity remains untouched, buried under mountain rock. Right before U.S. strikes, Iran loaded its highly enriched uranium onto trucks and dispersed it, maintaining their nuclear leverage. The second tripwire is the petrodollar, the global financial system where oil is traded almost exclusively in U.S. currency. If Gulf state oil infrastructure is dragged into an all-out war, that economic engine shuts down. The stability of the Middle East and the global energy market now depends on the diplomats in Islamabad, Cairo, and Ankara. Should their mediation fail, the resulting escalation would likely collapse regional trade and trigger a massive global recession.